Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. I was prepared for 20 minutes, so I think we have a lot more time than I thought. So I look forward to your question, and I will take it a bit more slowly. So yeah, I'm presenting here a game I'm building, and the goal is to launch it on L2. So we just hear of upcoming L2, so the game could run on multiple of them, so really looking forward to try them out. Just a bit about me. Being in the space since 2016, explore various ideas, work for various projects, and some of them are shown here. So Etherplay was what is a company now that I relaunched to build this game, but was back in the day in 2016 building basically one of the first MetaMask-enabled game on Ethereum. And then I built like Mystery Market, Eternal World, and Mandalas recently. So this is a picture of Conquest, which is the game I'm presenting today and how it will run on layer 2. So here it's a picture of basically every little square here is a player-owned planet. And the game is basically a social game of strategy and diplomacy, and I emphasize diplomacy, especially, and I think it will most likely be the future of crypto game are going to be diplomatic for one simple reason, is that bots are going to beat humans in every other field. And we can see that with Conquest, which is in some way a very simple game. And so to describe it, it's basically a game where you stake tokens to make planets produce spaceships, and you attack the other player to capture their stake with these spaceships. And what makes it a diplomatic game is a simple equation. It's like if you are alone, your risk equals your power. So your stake is your power. So if you are alone, that will always be that. As soon as you partner, suddenly your risk becomes lower than your power. So it's a game that, in the end, scale, because you could have someone going in with millions of dollars, is going to have $1 million of power, but is also going to have $1 million at risk. It's based on a game that I enjoy playing, that is closed. So the game is called Conquest. I discovered it through Linux, and it's based, so that I learned actually looking a bit deeper, it's based on an older game, I think in the 70s, called Galactic Conquest. And it's quite simple. You have a grid, you have planets around, and you set a game. So it's a completely closed game. Player have so it's a fun start at 3 players. And so you have, let's say, 3 players, each have their planet, and their planet produce spaceship. It's turn-based. And yeah, so every turn they have more planets, and they choose where they attack. They know everybody else planet and how many spaceships are located on this planet, but what they don't know is where they are sending these spaceships. So obviously you can imagine like making alliances. It happens always. Basically, as a 3-player game, as soon as someone takes the lead, the only strategy viable for the other is to come together and to kind of use the spaceship to beat the other. But because the spaceships, the fleet are unknown, you never know if the other person is actually stabbing in your back, and you discover that probably too late. So the idea was like, okay, this is a very simple game. How can it fit on the blockchain? So blockchain games are basically MMOs. So how to make this game open-ended and where there is no limit of players, and they can join at any time. So that was a challenge to how to fit that into a blockchain. And that's what the game is about. And then, of course, to make it fully decentralized, it needed to run on the EVM itself. And so when it was designed back then, the goal was to run it on Mainnet, like on the Ethereum Mainnet with the gas cost that it implied. And I still think today it could run, even if the gas price was multiplied by 100, it could still run on the Mainnet, but obviously the demographics will be different. It will be only people or entities like DAO who could participate in it. Yeah, so that's why I mentioned about the idea of alliances and also of betrayal. So I put a question mark here because I'm pretty sure it will happen, but in the alpha, so we launched an alpha in, so I was mentioning before, where there was 160 players, probably like maybe 30, 40 very active, and they were creating alliances in the Discord. The game was not encouraging public alliances, so this is a next version working on. Player will have to, so they will have an advantage to publicize alliances. I forgot what I was saying. Yeah, so the betrayal in the alpha didn't show up, so we could see alliances, but no betrayal. So, but I'm sure it will come. And so this game runs fully on the VM, as I mentioned. It's built in Solidity, and as I say, it can scale. So, and that's why it can run on L2, because L2 is still, it's not like a big order. I mean, it's still an improvement, but there is still a question of how much we could say, okay, we'll divide by 100, but maybe we'll be divided the cost of mainnet by only 10, for example. But because this game can scale, I have a strong conviction that it will be able to run there. So as I mentioned, like Conquest, the planet state ownership is known, but the attacks are unknown. And it uses a reveal and commit. It requires simply a commit and reveal scheme. And so obviously this introduces complexity for the user and the front end. So that's kind of the main work that is done on the front end. So currently, yeah, it's a work in progress. The goal is to launch on mainnet. When I say mainnet, means a layer 2 mainnet. Could be Optimism, Arbitrum, or Hermes, for example, or whatever. Or it will be multiple in the end. And so currently is working on better UX, better graphics, and as I mentioned, the alliances, and adding some extra rule with NFTs to give more mechanics of capture. So, and the next alpha is planned for October. So as I mentioned, it was designed for mainnet. So the first version was every single action require only one storage slot, one read and one write. And every planet state, so for that exact same reason, are described with only one storage slot. And another optimization was like every stat, so there is power, there is production, attack, defense, native, so there is few extra characteristics, and all of them are just generated randomly, so pre-generated because the hash is basically done up front, and it's just a hash, one hash operation. So, but obviously, if you start dig deeper, you realize there is some issues, and we had to sacrifice some gas. One of them is a front-running issue. It's simple. So I mentioned the fleets are unknown, but you have a commit or reveal scheme. So you commit your move, you say where you are going, and then we are talking about a game where when you send spaceship, it can take 3 days, it can take 7 hours, or it can take even 10 days if you are attacking someone at the faraway place in the galaxy. And so you have to come back there, or you have to have something running for you that will do that. But when you reveal, obviously the defender can see the transaction on the network before it gets finalized. And so while the attack is inevitable, the defender could just say, okay, I'm going to die anyway, let's save my spaceships and save them. So it's not perfect. It means the attacker don't have the choice of telling them, because the attacker always could say, hey, I am going to attack you, you should go away, and that's fine, that's part of the game. But if there was this front-running issue, then it will not be a choice. every defender will know, and you could have a service that does that for you. You always send your spaceship away if you know that they are going to be destroyed. So we require an extra storage right, and so you can, if you receive an attack during the 15 to 30 minutes, you can't escape it. So the whole game runs on L2, and the way the game make revenue, so the idea is to build up a studio behind it, to build more games and improve on the game. So we choose to use DAI as a, so the way it works, you go on the L1, you deposit DAI into the Etherplay token contract, you receive Etherplay token, and this Etherplay token, you transfer them to L2, and you use them to stake on the planet. So if you can imagine that as a player doing it, you'll probably not play. So obviously, as soon as we can move to L2, we can do that ourselves. So we can just deposit our own 10,000 DAI on L1, and then transfer them on L2, and then simply sell the token on L2. So it means, as a player, you don't even need to know that there is a L1. You just come, you purchase your token, you stake, and you play. Now, while the DAI is on L1, it's not the reason for it to be there is that the Etherplay token contract will auto-invest in the DeFi ecosystem like Yearn to generate revenue. So as more players come, the more revenue the company gets. And so, yeah, there is various solutions being worked on, and there is no reason to not go on all of them. So there is different implication on L2. And Hermes actually, the team of Hermes mentioned that a bit, is that there is different gas cost semantic between what we are used to on L1 and what we will see on L2, and also it depends on which solution, whether it's using zero knowledge proof or Arbitrum, have different, basically, gas costs. But overall, the same logic applies. The more optimized you are, the better. And there is also, of course, the delay of transaction inclusion, which depend of either how much it costs or how much it batch. And so it affects the front-running time. So when I mentioned 15, 30 minutes, we might need to adjust that depending on the network. And again, like while L2 plan to reduce the gas cost, we are still dealing with a gas cost that is non-negligible. And so the design of the game needs to account for that. And we believe that Conquest is such a game. And there is future issue with data scalability, with Polygon eating that issue, for example, but there is also what was mentioned about data availability if we want to remain fully decentralized. There is also the issue that most of these L2 are in the stage of progressive decentralization. So that was basically it. So the game, there is a website for the game, and you can subscribe to the mailing list to get to know when the next one will run. We also set up a devlog where we kind of describe what we are doing. There is also a website for the company. So I think there is a lot of time ahead of us. I don't know if you have any question. Yeah.
Hi. You said that InGame Resources are directly linked to how many tokens you stack. Isn't there a risk of someone just coming in with like 10 times the number of tokens of the biggest player and just like destroying everyone and exiting with like everyone's resources?
Yeah, so it's hard to imagine without launching in some way. But as I mentioned, like the more you have at risk. So
if you are the biggest one, what's the risk? Sorry. If you are the biggest one, like in the game, what's the risk for them?
So you have to divide. You don't choose to put all in one planet. So each planet have different value. So you are spreading basically your empire, and then so it means that at the edge you are basically vulnerable.
Yeah,
And
makes
it
sense.
also means it's a bit interesting because you never know if someone have more than you, and so it's kind of you probably want to put a bit, see how it reacts, put more. I don't know. It's kind of question that I think we will have to see in real with real money. And
Thanks.
the testnet was I mean, we launched an alpha, but it was free money, so it was just free. So it was hard it will be hard to see that. Yeah.
So as you said, there's an issue with having everything on chain. It brings a lot of issues. Have you considered doing some sort of proof of play off-chain that the player would push and that could get challenged by the rest of the network?
So I mean, for other games in the past, I've been exploring what you can do, but there is a lot of issues that come with it for how do we ensure that the rule be followed, etc. So I think, especially with the move now with L2 coming, and I think the future look very bright for like basically smart contract with full capability. Of course, we have to start somewhere, and I think the design of the game is basically for that, for this kind of limitation. But we'll see how it goes. I think, like for example, we had there was one player I picked among was spent 200 million gas for 3 weeks of play. So if we divide that by 100 with like 100 of a GUE, it will cost maybe $4 for 3 weeks, and I think it's reasonable. But then if it's 10 times more, then we are dealing with $40 in 3 weeks, which is still fine. But then we are dealing with a bit different demographics, and we are also dealing with the price of planet that we have to change. For example, now in the alpha was $4 the minimum planet, and if we deal with higher cost, we can just increase the gas cost, so that relatively the action are. Yeah.
Hey, so for me as a player to form programmable diplomacy, do I require to have solidity knowledge?
So, I mean, so there will be. I think it will be interesting to see what you can do after on the contract side to manage alliances, etc. So that's one thing. Part of the work that we are working on for alliances is to try to make pluggable alliances, so you can define some rules. But in general, the diplomacy aspect will be really a human communication. So you don't need, you will not need solidity, and yeah, no knowledge of solidity will be required.
Maybe there anywhere we can see the diplomatic primitives that are already built.
So for now, there is no such thing. It's just people. So in the alpha, it was just people like chatting in private and deciding to not attack each other, and they basically won the alpha. And there was some other alliances, less big, less strong. I think that.
I mean, to make this, what do you say, to not attack each other, to make it programmable, like we sign a smart contract, so if you attack me or another member of this agreement, attack another member, he's going to be punished by somehow. And this programmable and incentivized.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what I mean. You will need solidity, and we might start to do some simple primitives, but ideally people will build. So what I expect is that as a player, you might find other players already building that, or even maybe making it open source for others to reuse that to manage alliances.
Yeah. So you were just talking about like on-chain alliances and how that could work. So how do you think that would work with like the whole commit reveal scheme? Like if you can see what your alliance is doing on-chain, then like how would you keep that a secret, really?
Yeah, so I think you want to keep it as a. So there is an issue here, like where when you want to do alliances, that's why you might want to have an Unchained slashing mechanism for your alliances, so that you still allow you to keep your move secret. But if you were to betray, you will punish by another mechanism. So this is something I'm looking like at what we can do to help doing this kind of mechanism. But I think it's possible, like to have a way to ensure that you have still the freedom to betray, But there is a higher level where you say, okay, you betray, but now you are slashed by some other token that you created.
And so would there be like coordinated moves then, like where you as an alliance want to make the same move, where you could, because let's say you all want to attack another alliance maybe, and you want to have some slashing mechanism maybe for that as well, that everyone needs to follow the same sort of strategy, but then you can't really encode that strategy on chain because then it would be known as well. Is that something that you've thought about as well, or like do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, not really. I think a lot of it will be off-chain coordination, and there will be an element of trust. But what you can do on chain is to say, "Hey, you attacked me," and so then that's where you can slash. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
If you play on one L2, can you meet players on another L2 or not?
No, it will be, the game will be isolated. Okay. The token, the Etherplay token, though, will be shared across actually all L2, but also all other games in the future.
And so if I want to meet a friend that is playing on Optimism and I'm on Arbitrum, can I bridge from the L1, or will you put...
I mean, there is other solution, like, but it will be outside of the scope of the work we do, but you will be able to, technically send your token, but it won't be in-game. There will be no in-game connection across L2.
Okay, and you plan to support every L2, or?
So no, actually, I mean, L2 is our main focus, but we'll definitely go to sidechain, like XDAI, Matic. Actually, this will be interesting for us because there will be different demographics. With some sidechain, we could go a far lower price for the planet. We could go even less than $1, and having maybe so that we will definitely explore that.
Thank you.
No other question? Okay, thank you.